Hello and welcome to the HH Gaming podcast brought to you by hellhades.com. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Nubkex or Nub Raids, another content creator within the Raid space, who kind of moved over from making content from other games, but kind of really made a name for himself very, very quickly in the Raid community. So welcome, Nubs. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to be on with you guys. I've been watching your videos for so long as well. It's really cool to actually sit down and talk face to face.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying just before we started the podcast that I'm probably going to fanboy a little bit here because a lot of people in the Raid community may not know that you used to create content for World of Warcraft, which is a game that I played for 15 years. And, you know, I still do dabble a bit in it when I have free time. Not that I actually have any free time at all.
Free time.
But I've got very close friends who are still very in tune with the WoW community and things like that. And when you started creating videos on Raid, I think hellhades kind of said, "Oh yeah, have you seen this guy? He's like making videos and they're great." And I clicked in, and I was like, "I know this name." It's like, where do I know it from?
Where have I seen him from?
And then I looked at in your channels. It's like, yeah, of course, this is Nubkex. You just create WoW videos. So, so what kind of pushed you to move across to Raid?
Well, actually, believe it or not, I got into Raid because I was doing videos on World of Warcraft, which is when I kind of started doing the WoW videos, was properly for the Shadowlands beta.
Yep.
And I was covering all the classes, and like those videos were doing really well. So I actually, of course, as a lot of people do, got approached by Raid to do a sponsored video.
Awesome.
Of course
like,
you did.
Yeah, of course. So I was like, yeah, check out this game, cool. And because I was covering the beta for 2 or 3 months, I ended up doing it maybe 2 or 3 of the different sponsorships. So sort of casually playing it, and at that point, you know, after playing it for a good bit, I actually started really enjoying it. So I just kept playing. And then eventually, about a year later, I was like, hey, I've been playing the game for about a year. Why don't I start up a channel? It'll be a bit of fun. I'm playing the game all the time anyway. I'm really into it and watching the content creators and discussing it and stuff. So might as well. And yeah, that's basically how it started. And it just kind of took off from there. So
is this now your full-time focus? Have you moved completely away from WoW and things like that?
Yeah. Well, actually, funny enough, I literally installed and started playing WoW again yesterday for the first time.
Pre-patch.
Yeah, for the pre-patch. Yeah. So
sweet.
For the first time in a long time. And I'm gonna like hop back on with the old guild and do the raid with them for the new expansion. Gotta get that new expansion hype in.
It's funny because out of like our group, I mean, hellhades used to play World of Warcraft years ago. But out of our group, I'm kind of the only one who's really like into the World of Warcraft space. And we went to TwitchCon a couple of months ago now, and I've got a lot of friends in Method. So while we were at TwitchCon, we were hanging out with like Kana and the guys from Method. The first night that we were there, I left Pool. To go and let Simon and Lockers into the hotel because they got a different flight into Amsterdam from me. And when I got back, now Paul doesn't come from a World of Warcraft background at all.
I'm Lord of the Rings Online.
Yeah,
that's my backdrop. That's my WoW game.
I came back to the bar after leaving him for a good couple of hours or so, and I come back and Paul's just sat there. He is with Lapan, Nagura, Kana, and they're all just kind of sat around him, all just chatting away. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Because like somebody, you know, these are all like famous World of Warcraft streamers, and Paul's just like, yo, come meet my new friends. And it's just like, okay.
Ironically, outside an Irish bar.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Which is, oddly enough, very, very popular in Amsterdam.
Yeah, like, it is.
It literally
very
was like,
welcoming.
It was basically like sweet shop, space cake shop, like EDM shop for clothing, Irish bar.
Yep.
Rinse, repeat. Every street, minus like the 2 streets that, you know, everyone knows about Amsterdam. But it was literally like, it was, and we're not just talking like, no, it's a little bit of this. It was like, it was all very much 100% committed to what it was selling. It was barrels upon barrels upon barrels of Haribo and very big Irish bars with lots of Irishness. It was very cool. But yeah, I mean, I come from Lord of the Rings Online. That's my kind of like WoW game. You know, everyone has like a game that they've played for like years upon years. It's how you get into gaming. And mine's Lord of the Rings Online. I've started playing it a bit now since there's a new expansion coming out in that as well.
Oh, wow.
So I've not ever. I've seen WoW. I've watched it. I've never played it at all. I've never been on it. And people, it's actually surprising how many people in the gaming community would go, "What? You've never played it?" Like, no. And they're like, "But how have you managed to never play this game in your life?"
It is surprising, especially if you're into MMOs, if you haven't played World of Warcraft at this point, because you know it's set the standard for so long. I mean, previously to World of Warcraft, I used to play like a 2D MMO, which was called The Myth of Soma. And it was such a small community within that game to then go into World of Warcraft when it first ever came out. I started playing WoW on day 2. And the reason that I didn't get in on day 1 was because basically at the time I was at college, and my parents, my mum didn't have internet at her house, and my dad did. So I think it came out on like the Thursday, and I had to wait until the weekend to go to my dad's house to play it. So I had the box in my hand. Like, and then I had to wait like the 9 hours for like the 3
an eternity.
The six CDs. No, it's the 6 CDs to install. And
that's true.
Those are the days.
I remember the Mines of Moria expansion, which was like the first expansion for Lord of the Rings Online. They kind of released the game. It was out for a year, and they'd already started developing the expansion. So whenever a new game comes out, the first expansion is always like humongous, and then reality sets in, and they become smaller and smaller. And Mines of Moria is like, huge, probably one of the biggest expansions I've ever seen in any game. It had the whole mine landscape, like open world. There was no instancing. It was like one massive chasm. And I remember sitting there. It was like, it went live on like a Thursday, and I was like 16, 17 at the time. And I remember staying up all night just in hope that I can get into the game before I had to go to like
it's like you're ready to do an all-nighter, and the all-nighter turns out to be the queue.
The queue.
It's like...
Well, the problem is you're dreading that message, which is like, due to unforeseen circumstances, the downtime has been extended by 2 hours. We'll let you know what's going on. You're like, oh no.
Or the one where you finally get in. And you're like, right, I'm ready, boys. And then it pops up in the corner, server maintenance in 15 minutes. And it's just like,
back in the queue.
Come on. What do we do? Like, right, bedtime.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like server queues have got worse in games lately. I remember like you used to have to queue to some extent, but like when we started playing New World, like the queues were
it's like 20 hours.
I heard that.
New World, sometimes it was
awful.
20 hours. We actually ended up moving to a smaller server just to get a smaller queue.
I'd literally boot up the game at like 8 o'clock in the morning when I woke up. I'd work all day, like, supporting the website, doing dev stuff and different things. And then by the time I'd finish at like 5 o'clock, it'd be like, oh, you're about to get in the game. It's like, awesome. Cool. But I've heard like Dragonflight, and what was it? The classic release was it Lich King that released with classic?
Yeah.
Which, is like totally a rip-off of Lord of the Rings Online, because Shadows of Angmar, the Witch King of Angmar. We won't talk about that. But still, that like people were having 15-hour queues for classic.
Yeah, classic when that first came out, it was massively they under-egged how popular it was going to be, and Classic's launch was brutal. But actually, with the launch of the Lich King expansion, I think there was only 1 or 2 servers that had, in the EU anyway, that had really bad queues, and it's usually the queues which have big streamers on it. Where you get the real problems. But the problem with New World is that there was a 2,000 player cap.
It was
per server.
Sometimes less.
Just because of how the game's designed and how it's built, it can only have 2,000 people online at any time, which is ridiculous when they only release 15 servers.
Well, they had 1 million players.
Yeah.
Wow.
1 million players, 15 servers. It's like, great, what do we do, boys?
And they also had this marketing campaign. They're doing it now for Return to Eternum, which is like they've just released a big expansion, totally free if you've already bought the game, which is really cool. They didn't make people pay for it. And they're doing this big like Prime campaign type of thing called Return to Eternum. And it's the same thing with launch. They basically said, come join a fresh start server. This is where your streamers are going to be. So you're almost like telegraphing people to sit in a 10,000 queue because you want to play with Asmongold because he's playing the Return to Eternum. And it's like, it's just, if you don't want to queue, don't pick the server. Don't go there.
Avoid at all costs.
I'm still going for a fresh server on that game, by the way.
We are.
Yeah, we're gonna play it. We've really enjoyed that game, but there was so many flaws with the
It's
end
really
game.
good now.
Really?
Apparently a lot of it's been fixed. So
the problem is it just
we'll
came out a year too soon. It's like loads of MMOs. Dragonflight, I've been following the news on it. I don't play WoW, but I follow the news, and I'm not the expert here. I'm sure you two are more experts than I am, but I know that there's lots of
don't know. I'm pretty lost on the new talent system.
Well, there's lots of long-standing content creators who are basically saying this isn't ready. It's buggy. It's lots of problems. It needs more time. And I think that's the same thing with New World. There's so much pressure now to get this game out that New World came, and it was like the first 30 levels were amazing. It felt like a brand new MMO. It all worked. It made sense to go chop some wood, take over territories. And then you got to like 30 plus, and it was like, well, there's no content.
Stopped. Yeah, the content stopped at 30, but the max level was 60. So it's like,
and this content
what do we do?
Copied. Like you fought the same monster, but it may be slightly different. There wasn't enough diversity. It felt a bit like there wasn't a lot of. Whereas the thing with things like WoW and Lord of the Rings Online, why they've lasted so long, is the soul of the game, right? It's either you're invested in the story like Lord of the Rings Online, or you're invested in your communities in the way that the game feels and plays. And you know, the storylines in WoW is just on par in terms of like if you think the big cinematics.
Wait, there's a story in WoW? I don't know. I click skip.
Well, you know what I mean. Like the cinematics for WoW were part of the whole.
No, the cinematics are incredible
of the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas I think with this one, it felt a bit too soulless, for a better word.
Which is what I think that they've addressed with this new expansion.
Yeah. Well, the whole new start of the game is more diverse. They've added new mob variants. They've improved the leveling experience.
There's actually quests to take you up to level 60 now.
It's not just town board repeats.
yeah.
It literally got to the point on level 35 where it was
you just go out grinding.
You go to the town board and it says, go find fish. You go fish, you bring the fish back, and the town board says, great, you did that. Now go get another fight. And you're like, no.
This is gameplay.
And then you run out of town board missions. After doing like 5 or 6 a day, you're like, what do I do now? I go cut wood for 8 hours, and then I'm going to go hit mobs for another 8 hours. And
you know it's bad when you start to miss the fetch quest to go get 5 fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a bad sign.
And it was also the crafting system was inverted in the sense that it had like a linear progression where you have like 0 to 200, you know, and you have breakpoints, a bit like you have in traditional crafting systems where, hey, you know, there's a new tier, new expansion, have a new tier of gear, new tier, and you have to like level up that gear, right? With New World, they kind of had that concept, but the problem was it was too expensive to craft the older stuff. So all of the rare materials, like you had like a rarity scale of like bronze all the way through to like this orichalcum kind of ore. The orichalcum was worthless because you had to use all the pre-existing materials to make the orichalcum. So therefore, to make one orichalcum ingot, you needed like 200 iron. So the iron was really worth everything. And it meant actually leveling the whole crafting. You just went and made like 20 million boots, which were the basic boots.
And he's not underestimating that, by the way. 20 million of them. You had to make
loads.
A lot.
I think they had a furnishing craft. You had to make like, I don't know, 200 like million.
You'd set yourself crafting and then just go to work.
Oh, like, it's miserable.
Come back and you're still like hitting away on the anvil.
But it is better now. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. And I think, you know, there's lots of MMO news coming out soon, right? Ashes of Creation.
Hopefully.
WoW, it seems to be trying to make a resurgence. I don't know whether retail can sort of survive because I know Classic is more popular than retail in WoW.
I don't know. I think people underestimate retail and its popularity. The problem is that retail basically focuses around 3 different modes now. You've got Mythic Plus, you've got raiding, and you've got PvP. And that's it. What they need to do is they need to bring back open world content into the game. And if they can do that, I think they'll pull the community back. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, let's talk about the game that we are here to discuss today. Apologies. This is what we do on the podcast. As I said, we just chat. So let's talk about Raid, because not only have we had a new faction come in this week, we've got a new fusion that's starting, and then we've got one of the most hyped up epic champions in the game for a very long time that was unfortunately nerfed before the world even got their hands on him. So I guess let's talk about the new faction to start with before we look at the fusion and things like that. What's your guys' thoughts on what was the Wood Elves coming into the game?
It looks great, honestly. I think the new faction is really cool. that was definitely one of the things, the big art styles that was missing. It was like nature themed stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that to come in. I did think a couple of the epics are exceptionally boring, like Ruella, who looks really cool mechanics wise, like visually is like, it's just an elf, guys. What's going on? And then you've got the other, like Ruodan, the big runic golem guy. Like he looks absolutely amazing. But yeah, no, I think they've got in like a good mix of champions in there. Like there's a lot that you'd be, I think, interested to collect. I'm just the big thing I'm waiting for is like, what is the first guaranteed champion or the first login reward or fusion gonna be from that faction? Because that's the one people will actually get.
Well, the thing is, we know the login champion is always a new champion.
Yeah.
So it won't be one of this batch.
No.
You know, we know apart from Cleopteryx, they've always been new champions. We're on an epic next, aren't we? So it's probably not going to be a very good champion if it is, because let's face it, the two epics we've had so far are
lackluster to say the least.
No, I'm talking about like the
guaranteed
Deliana type
ones.
Okay.
The daily logins, right?
Yeah, like what do you guys think about that? You know, they could do one. I think they did simple last year was December, like start of December.
Yeah,
I think it makes
sense. I mean, Ninja came in with the Shadowkin, didn't he? So
he did.
Yeah.
It's possible that there may be something on the cards there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything in the game code. I'm not allowed to tell anyone anyway.
I was going to say, these conversations get us in trouble with Polarium.
Well, as long as I don't tell any details. I think the only reason why I got in trouble last time is I kind of gave everyone when it was going to start, and all the content creators were like, "Why didn't we know?" And I was like, "Because you don't data mine." But there's nothing.
And that's why we're not allowed nice things, Paul.
Yes, I know. That's why I can't go on the test server and play with new champions. I know this, but yeah, so I think there's potential. I was surprised that the Green Ghost Rider, I can't really say his name, I call him the Green Ghost Rider, he's the new Shadowkin, that he was a ×10 not a guaranteed this weekend. I was surprised.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost wonder if they did that because they saw how much everyone likes him, and they're like,
he's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. And they were like, ooh, people really like him. Let's do like a Withier thing where it's like, give him a few 10x's first, then maybe a guarantee down the line.
Yeah. Have you tested him in 10X. Hydra?
I'm actually going to be testing him later after this. Yeah, that's the plan.
Excellent. Everyone can go watch the King of
Make
Hydra.
sure that you head over to Nub's channel to check that one out.
I've heard some positive rumors. I think Colbro was in Dead with Jedi's stream the other night, and he was saying that he was matching or close to Acrisia.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Okay.
It could be insane. And like, you know, for people who don't know who we're talking about the new Shadowkin, Michinaki, who has that passive effect where he will join any ally's attack if they attack a hex target on a 50% chance. And then on the A when he HP burns, which is why it's instantly like, okay, Hydra, hello, hex for the mischief head, HP burn. But it's actually like when you compare him to other champions that join attacks like Cardiel, they're only like 15-20%. I've done a lot of numbers in Clan Boss with this champion. It's like astronomical how strong that passive is.
Yeah, I've heard he's extremely good for a Demon Lord as well. Yeah, I saw YST do that.
Like crazy strong. If you can get the setup right, because obviously if you can get like more 3-1 champions, you activate more passives because they're attacking more often. The more attacks your allies do, the more attacks he's going to do. And you could get up to like, I reckon he could easily beat Ninja.
Yeah, he's easily. Like for Hydra, I actually, in the previous fusion, Moranix, I kind of liked her. I thought she's all right for Hydra, you know, bringing in AoE Hex and decreased defense. It's like, that's a decent kit. She's got 2 AoEs. And then this guy comes along. He's like, okay, well, I bring the AoE Hex. I also bring a buff strip. Also, I'm defense-based, so I'm tanky. Got a decreased defense and decrease attack. And what the heck? I'll join in half the time on ally attacks with an A1 HP burn. You know, it's all good, guys.
It's effectively an AoE HP burn.
Yeah,
because you can pick the target because eventually he's going to do it. It's a 50% chance on an A1 that he attacks either with his A1 or 50% chance with an ally. So you stick someone like Nekmothar in, it's going to outdo a HP burner. Like he's going to get back around to his abilities. And if we use the new epic Nia, which is broken.
Oh, I haven't tested her either.
Broken strong.
Yeah, that she is very interesting with it reduces everyone's the target's abilities by 2 turns, isn't it?
I wish I had Yumiko.
Very strong. Yeah. Oh, that would
because
be cool.
Yumiko can be reset.
The thing that makes that really, I'm wondering about now that you said that this guy Michinaki could be almost as good as Acrisia or even better, it's like, is that a Akrisia problem where I'm looking at, like, they put Akrisia in the game and she is so unbelievably good for Hydra. It's like, what are they going to do in the future? Like, is it going to be that situation where they bring out Ultra Nightmare and it's like, you need to have Akrisia or you're doing it 2 key? There's no chance. It's like, I don't really want her to be nerfed. It's kind of like with Krisk, they added in Necmo Thar, and it's like, okay, now you can start building teams around Necmo instead of Krisk that can do really well. I think that's the way to go. Maybe this guy is like that first step of, okay, here's an Akrisia level champion. I just have the bummer of, making stuff like Cupidus and stuff who are absolutely insane for a little while start to be like, well, they're not that exciting for Hydra now anymore, right? You want to get these new flashy tools instead.
It is the problem with like making champions. Like you release a new faction, and this is why the Shadowkin faction is actually quite strong, because it was something I was noting when I was talking about Tomoa, that epic they released. Normally when we see passives that are like, it only works with this faction, we're kind of like, oh, well, you might as well just like forget that thing because you're never going to activate it. But when you actually look at the power of Shadowkins, because it was a new faction, it's had all new champions, it needs to be shiny, otherwise what's the point of adding it?
Yeah.
You get like extremely strong champions. And like you think Shadowkin's got Kyoku, one of the best ally protectors, if not the best ally protector in the game. You've got Lady Kimmy, like a monster of a champion. You've got Yumiko.
Yeah.
You've got both of the top 2 damage dealers in Clan Boss, in Ninja and Jintoro.
Yeah.
So
You've also got crazy epics like Genbo as well.
So they have to, when they release this new faction, the Silver Watchers, they're going to have to make them strong. So it's immediately like power creep when you add so many new into because obviously the faction also has to support itself when they release Faction Wars. So you need
I was about to say that actually. We need to keep in mind that we will be getting a new Faction Wars as well.
Yeah. So. Which is why champions like Mr. Rider Daithi, who does that like extra turn stuff, might be a bit like, not that great. But when you look at the faction, you think he's the only one that really does AoE decreased defense. So for Faction Wars, it's actually really solid. You'd be quite happy to get him. So, but yeah, I mean, I think so far, I'm not too crazy about the taunt. I don't really think there's enough champions to actually warrant us to be like, it's not Stone Skin when it came out, like, oh God, the whole thing's going to blow up.
Yeah.
But it is like, you can play around it, right? You can do some cool stuff with it, I think. So I'm not too worried about that. But I think champions like Elva replaces Ares in a lot of teams if you want to run an aura. It's basically a direct 1-to-1 replacement.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you get the cleanse and the increased speed. It's kind of like a lame way to use a legendary champion. But if you want, the problem that you generally have with like the Mythic Ares teams is you're almost like forced into like a Deacon or a Fushan because you need the aura to make the team speeds reliable. Well, Elva can do the Ares job, probably a little bit less damage, but she brings 110 base speed. She brings a 19% speed aura, and she brings block debuffs if you need it in some fashion, which you probably don't because she cleanses. Like, you just swap out Ares for Elva, and now you've got an option to run a 19% aura without having to run Deacon or having to run sort of Fushan. You've got more flexibility there. So I think that's a really interesting champion. I think in Arena as well, she's kind of like a version of Siphi, right?
Yeah,
she's got that single target revive.
Yeah, she's like my most wanted, I think, from the new faction. Yeah, she probably would be, because I don't have a Siphi or a Duchess, so I'm always really jealous.
Oh, same. Finally, somebody else is in the same boat as me.
I know, right? So like,
I don't have the Siphi. I have the Duchess though.
I'm like one of the biggest whales in the game, I swear, and I've got like just trash champions.
But you've got a 6-star Elenarl.
I do. I can blow stuff up, and that's about it.
I did test Lethal Dose.
Not good.
No,
I tried to test Incinerate, and it was also pretty dreadful. I was like, it doesn't make sense, because with these things, it's
damage.
Like, you'd think it'd be good against like a really tanky team, like slowly wear them down with your dots doing more damage. But tanky teams, they bring in cleansers, they bring in block debuffs, so it's so hard to make it.
It needs the Diablo 3 fix, where it's like deal 7,000 damage.
Yeah.
If it was like 500% more HP burn damage, then you think, you know what, actually,
that's all right.
But like 50%,
yeah,
it's like 50% of 3%. Wow, it's like 4.5, guys. It's amazing. It's only going to take us like 10 turns for that to kill someone. I just don't understand even where the logic came from to make that kind of thing.
That new legendary King Galkabar, he's the Lethal Dose bait. I heard someone describe him as that. Bait you in for because you get the accuracy. He does some poisons when he strips.
I did think that.
Yeah.
The only thing about him though is he needs to have the buffs out there to place the poisons, which is a bit of a problem because if you don't have the buffs to strip,
yeah.
like it's pretty cool that you can like it's got like that harvest jack mechanic where he like replaces one thing with another thing else. Pretty cool. And it's a bit of a Wither counter, I think, in terms of, you know, if you find a Duchess with their team, they actually have quite a lot of continuous heals.
Yeah.
If you bring this guy, he's just gonna like clean them off. And then obviously the passive gets the problem of, well, they're either gonna get cleansed. It's like, well, no, because if you attack me before you cleanse, I'm gonna activate it. I'm gonna trigger those things, which is actually I love those kind of mechanics where things that you have no choice but it's going to interact kind of forces it. So you have to think more smart about how to use it and who to attack and how to use it with. I think that's the depth that we need to have in the game rather than just have 20% more attack. More complexity is, as long as it's not too like erroneous complex, like as long as we're clear about how things work, right, it's fine. And I'm pretty sure, and I will add this in the podcast, they still haven't made it so that polymorph works with deterrents. Despite what everyone tells
you.
Really?
Sure? Are you sure? Because Polarium
not in the code.
keep correcting you, Paul.
I
love it that they're so subtle about it as well. It's like somebody is saying that it's not working, and Paul's just like, okay, another reply video. Guys, it is still not in your code. You really need to fix it.
I just like how it came from. It definitely works to. Oh, it's not working as intended.
Yeah. We were supposed to.
It's just not coded.
No, the fact is you weren't supposed to notice that it's not coded.
I know. It frustrates me, and I'm like, the thing is, it's obvious it wouldn't work because when Mithrala came out, they updated the masteries to support petrification.
Yeah.
So anyone who didn't even look at the coding will go, well, hang on, if you have to do it with Mithrala, and that was a new debuff, and then you're bringing out Sheep, which is a new debuff, then surely you would have to update it to support the new debuff.
It just makes too much sense.
I know. Logic is a dangerous thing.
We'll see how quick they are to respond to this one.
Yeah. But so of the new faction,
there's like a team sat up in Polarium to specifically monitor what we are doing now.
Probably. I kid you not, when everyone was telling me in advance, like on Friday, on Saturday, like was it Thursday or Friday, everyone was DMing me like, oh, so what's this thing about a new faction? I'm like, I cannot mention anything.
Yeah. Do you not think we're in enough trouble as it is, guys?
Like,
don't stir the pot.
You know, I was like, there's probably a test server, there's probably an embargo. If you're telling me there's a new faction, I did check. I was like, oh, okay, I see what they've done. They basically updated the live server with all the text descriptions.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's already like 10 people sitting there waiting, going, oh, look, there's a new version. I better check what's happened. It's not like I'm sitting there, I'm the only one. There's plenty of people doing it.
Yeah.
And I was just getting DM and message and pings going, can you confirm this is accurate? And I'm like, I do not want to put my name to this. I don't even want to be anywhere near it. Because I don't want to get us into any sort of trouble, even though it's on the live server, right? So it's not like we're breaking any rules this time.
Also, I mean, that information, unfortunately, you know, although people in the community seem to love to think that it's us leaking it, we are not leaking it, but it was leaked. You know,
I wouldn't even say it was leaked. It was in the live server.
Yeah, they put it up live, I think.
They actually, so there's like two parts to the static data where you have the actual objects, like the heroes, the champions, and all that kind of stuff. And then you have all like the localization files, which is the text descriptions. They didn't add the heroes, the champions. It's called heroes in the game code, but they added all the text descriptions. So they added the new the new sets. They added the new faction descriptions. They added the new like champion descriptions and skills. And I'm like, yeah,
put it on my computer, Polarium. What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
But I know they are super, super sensitive about the embargo on the test server for obvious reasons, because they don't want to release things. They want it to be all changed. So, you know, I obviously we know that how it works, because obviously Hell Hades, and obviously you yourself
just gonna
get the same
pass
message.
A shovel over to you right now.
So, but we know there's like an embargo, right? You guys, when you get the message,
you just
about
keep
new
digging
updates,
this hole.
when you guys get new updates, you're basically told, like, you know, this is when you can talk about it. This is when you can release it. This is when you can do stuff. Let us know if you're doing anything special, because they want to tie up their marketing with your marketing. It makes sense, right? It's not a test server; it's a marketing server.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it was all coming out on Friday, I was like, why would you like? You know, it's the kind of little bit of the double standards of being so intrinsically harsh to your creators, and then you just go accidentally, conveniently dump the whole update in the live server, and then everyone tells me about it, and I'm like, now I'm in an awkward situation, because we'll get it in the neck, even if we haven't done anything.
I mean, we've actually had it in the past, and I'm not sure if it was when you were a creator or in the creator program yourself, Nub, but where we were given an embargo of say 11 o'clock. Come 9 o'clock in the morning, Plarium are putting it out on their socials. It's just like, okay, guys, we'll tell the rest of the world in a couple of hours then, I guess.
Well, it was like Heroes Path. The first time I heard about Heroes Path was from a Discord message in our official Discord, in the Hell Hades Discord, from someone who was like, oh, I was watching a YouTube video and I got this ad about Raid, and they basically had paid the paid people, you know, like you do a paid promotion. They'd given them information about the upcoming Heroes Path, visuals and everything, because I thought it was just a scam or something. But I was looking, I was like, no, it looks real. Like a day before they were going to tell their own creators. I'm like, it's like a major update to some extent.
I think the thing is, you've got so many different, the size of a company like Plarium, you've got so many different cogs. And unfortunately, sometimes they just don't work within the same speed. So I think the partner managers and things like that are told, okay, cool, you can give this information at this time, and then you've got the people who deal with like the paid sponsors and things like that, and they will have like a set amount of time that they need to be able to get these paid promotions out. And the paid promotions, in fairness, probably do need to be told ahead of time, because they don't want to rush to get content out. They don't care.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, they don't care about
doing the minimums, right?
Dropping the news on the game. They're just in it for the money at the end of the day. I mean, everyone's got to pay their wages. You are a content creator, these paid sponsorships. Every now and again, like yourself, Nub, there's a game that you will actually enjoy and carry on with. But let's face it, 90% of the games that are promoted on YouTube and things like that are just to push it out to the audience. And it's just like, when you're watching a show on telly, in the ads, you're going to have an ad break, and that creator's gonna get paid for it. I've got no problem with that at all, because actually, being content creators being able to support themselves and keep doing what they do for a living, just based on just AdSense alone, is very difficult. Once you add sponsorships and things like that into the mix, it gives you that sort of leeway of being able to say, okay, cool, I can make this step into doing it full time now, because I'm getting these jumps every few months where we get a sponsor. So I mean, that's kind of the way things are, I guess. And I can understand why in Plarium's case there is that breakdown, because the sponsorships probably have to be approved by Plarium. Speaking from experience with doing YouTube promotions and things like that, they'll have a criteria that they need to do with their video that will be pushed out. The creator will make it, then send it back to Plarium for them to review, and then they'll come back and say, okay, cool, good to go. Now, when you're dealing with a very strict timeline of this video can go out at this time, but you've got to go through that approval process, I think that's probably where that breakdown comes. But I think, things like the test server and information being given out to the community who's actually playing the game, I think is way more important than, pushing it out to maybe, a few thousand people who might play the game and might pick it up. But I guess that's the difference between Plarium's marketing strategy versus every content in Raid Shadow Legends retention strategy of keeping people playing and keeping people interested. So, but yeah, so
Fiction's TED Talk on ad sponsorship is there.
I could talk about this for weeks, boys. Yeah, everyone's like glazing over. It's just like, okay, let's talk about ad strategy and search engine optimization. And let's figure out how we're going to rank for everything possible. And yeah, that's my jam.
Where everyone realizes that whenever I need anything set up for streaming or not, it's like Fiction. How does this work?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the sort of thing that interests me, though. I specialize in search engine optimization and business strategy. That is kind of my thing. So that side of things, I guess it is what interests me, and I understand. But I think, it infuriates the community more than us as creators because it feels like they're just getting left out. And at the end of the day, they're the ones who are supporting the game and keeping the game running and functioning as it does. So I think a little bit more care in terms of releasing the right information to the right people at the right time would probably... Yeah, well, accurate information as well.
It's not
Let's
even
put
like
videos out with the wrong buff. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I can understand if we get translation issues. They're obviously, their first language is not English for many of them. That's fine. You can have like different phrasing and different things, like Mighty Ugo's passive. I can forgive the lack of like clarity on that because it's difficult to explain in a second language. But fundamentally, having a video which has got the wrong value with a voiceover that says the wrong value, that must have gone from developer to like marketing to the actual people they're paying to do it, back to some sort of QA or authorization sign off. And nobody in that point went, oh, guys, isn't that the wrong value for that buff and debuff? Like, and I'm thinking not as an existing player. I'm thinking I'm a brand new player that I've just been acquired because they've just done a big, massive push with Ultimate Death Knight. Got all these brand new players coming in. They look at that video and then they look on another place and they go, hang on, it's not the same thing. Now I don't know what's going on.
I'm not sure as a new player I would care about 5% crit damage, just saying. But
I don't know if any players care too much about 5%.
But the problem is the problem is they're gonna think or make an assumption that it's good or bad. And when you're a new player in this game, you kind of like there's natural behavior to index heavily into one of them. So if you think it's good, you don't go, oh, it's okay. You go, it's really good. And if you think it's bad, you kind of go, it's really bad. So what ends up happening is this information that is incorrect. They think, oh, 30% less crit damage. That sounds really powerful. That sounds really good. And it's like when they get explained what it actually does, they kind of then go, oh, well, it's not that good. And I think that's the problem. If you're they have a responsibility in my eyes to make sure that the marketing they do officially is accurate as far as it can be. And those kinds of errors are a little bit like, you're leading players down the wrong path. And then we as creators end up taking the heat because they'll come to us going, well, Playroom told me that was true. You must be lying. And I'm like, look, I don't want to be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
But I can code it better than they can. At the moment.
That's fighting talk there, Paul.
At the moment, that's my move with them.
He's going in hard.
I said I'd rant at some point in this video.
You did.
It's going to happen.
It came with a disclaimer, don't worry. The joys of editing afterwards, right? So just moving on, obviously I don't want to keep you all afternoon, Nub, although we would obviously love to chat to you for hours and hours and hours. Obviously today we've got the launch of a new Fusion.
Yes.
What's your guys' views on the Fusion champion that's just coming into the game? Is this something that you think that people should go for? Obviously, we've got the epic, 4 of the epics, plus no space to get any extras. So you've kind of got to make the choice. Yeah, you've got to make the choice. Do you go for the epic? Do you go for the legendary? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very spicy decision from them. Like I guess to give it a positive spin, at least as positive a spin as you can, I feel like, for people that are actually capable of getting 5 epics in these sort of events, like that's more paying players or much later game players that have the resources stockpiled. So at least that part doesn't affect like the earlier player, the free to play player too much. But it's still pretty terrible not to have the extra epic in there. I don't know why they removed it. If you consider back in the day, you might have 2 of the epics would be up for grabs, like one in a champion training, one in like Summon Rush or something. They would be actually achievable, and you could be like, oh, I can go, do this event type, which I like, get the epic, and now I can skip 4 of these rares from these other events, which I don't want to do.
Yeah,
there was so much more flexibility. This fusion's pretty rough. It's like there are 16 rares. You got to get all 16. If you miss one, you're really in trouble.
Feels like the Brogni style thing, right? That same thing we had with Brogni, where it was like you miss one single event, that's it. The whole thing's over. You can't take a break. You can't like skip anything. There's no, unless you, at least with this one, if you pull, I suppose, the rare, you can skip a tournament, right? If you go in this weekend or next weekend, say like next weekend, you pull a lot of ancient shards, you get a lot of rares. Maybe you'll pull some of the rares, or maybe you'll pull some of the epics. Who knows? But
that's the hope.
I think the other thing to point out is a new faction epic. So yes, okay, we won't get faction wars for probably like 3 to 6 months. However, if you like, the pool of champions is big. Times 10 is not enough. What's the chances of you actually being able to pull together like 5 champions to actually get yourself through this new faction in 3 months if you're not buying lots of shots? I would say very low. So it's not now just a decision of, is the champion good? You're also thinking, well, eventually I'm going to have to do faction wars. And if I haven't got Lydia yet, that's going to be a even bigger thing
Yeah.
because they're going to increase that requirement. So you're actually making a decision of is the legendary champion going to actually add any value to me in the game, or am I going to need that epic to progress in that faction wars, or do I think I can comfortably get enough champions together? Because we haven't got the free ninja that everyone had for Shadowkin if you were playing the game at that time, and we didn't have maybe they'll do a summon event for some of these new factions before they do it or something. But I still think I can't understand why you would first make the champion so strong, then nerf him, and then not even offer him in the actual epic as a duplicate. I can't remember the last time in a fusion event we haven't had the option to get at least one of the epics.
Yeah,
as a duplicate.
I think it is probably because he is so good for progression. Like he even after the nerf, he's still a really good Dragon solo champion. I think that's what their intention was, that they don't want to give like newer players both a really good speed booster, and a really good progression champion that can solo these dungeons like that easily. I guess that's why they want people to make the decision,
but you just added 6 new epics into the game. So pick a different epic.
Yeah, they could have picked
Ruella.
Yeah,
pick Dicey. Maybe throw in Dwerdan and throw out the try to hype up your new buff. Like, there's no reason why you had to have the stronger one.
Yeah,
if you were worried about that, your logic's right though. I agree. Why would you give someone that potentially is better than the fusion? Because if you pull a Lissandra or you have a Deacon, you already sort of question, does she really give me something that those champions don't give me? Like Lissandra is a better turn meter booster and a better turn meter reduction because of the A2. Deacon brings the decreased defense and leech, which you don't get with this champion. So you're kind of like going, well, for a clan boss, I'm going to go with Deacon. For most content areas, I need an AoE decreased defense. Why would I want to bring another champion? Yes, I gain a lot more turn meter with the new fusion, but not that much. It's like 10%. If you think about it, it's like 15 versus 20. So it's like a net 10% gain with an increased speed, which is obviously the speed buff is quite strong. I personally think if you haven't got a Deacon or a Lissandra, you get the fusion. I think she's actually really worth it then. Yeah. Because she is like, that A3 is a monstrous ability. The passive is kind of like, meh. You're never going to use that.
Yeah, it's very niche. It's cool. I like the idea. And it might be kind of useful in some maybe tag arena teams, like that super tanky defense you can't get through, or maybe like Sifi waves, that sort of thing. In Doom Tower Hard, maybe the Sky Touch Shaman waves, they can be really challenging too. Maybe
the problem is
for that, but I haven't tested it. So
the problem I think is going to happen if it bounced different targets, it would be quite good. So if it was like targets the lowest HP, if they already have heal reduction, targets the next lowest HP. So you could build a really, really fast fusion champion and basically just keep pumping out this block, the heal reduction.
That'd be cool.
You probably got a capacity of like 3 realistically because of the duration and stuff. But that could be quite cool. And that would be good in arena then, because actually you could, you've got this problem of if it's a fast champion, I can't just fight endlessly because eventually that passive is going to take me down. The other problem with it is, okay, I heal reduction Candrathon. Cool. Well, he dies. Okay, gets revived. He hasn't got heal reduction anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've killed him, but you haven't done anything to solve the problem because they've got Sifi and Duchess and other revivers. You've got an Elva now to think about. So that's a third version. I think Elva will be an option there if you haven't got a Duchess or Sifi. And it's a different version of it. Like if you want a faster team that has a reviver, but you don't necessarily want like the Duchess, you need an alternative where you don't have Duchess. And she's actually really good into that slot. She doesn't give the increased attack, but she does a hell of a lot more healing than Duchess on that A1. And the A1 multiplier on Elva is actually quite high. So she might might be pretty good in damage wise if you're building her in like a clan boss team. She's not too bad. But yeah, I think if you haven't got a Lissandra, you haven't got a Deacon. It's good for that A3. Yeah. I don't know why you would have the A1 over someone like Kurzad. He does it 100% on a crit. So it's 70% versus 100% versus legendary versus rare. So I think that's some of the problems with the fusion. But I think generally it's an okay champion. I don't think it's bad.
I mean,
or good.
I think personally that I guess players should be asking themselves, as you said, is it going to be a massive benefit to the account? If not, don't write off the fusion altogether. Make sure you get one of the epics. And, and I think that's probably a choice that usually when a fusion comes out, at least recently, it's like, well, actually the fusion is trash. I'm not going to go for it at all. So just forget the events. Whereas actually, I think what they've done is quite clever here, because it's not write it off. It's just make sure you get one of the epics at least. which I think is players are going to be participating even if they're not going to go for the full fusion now, rather than just writing off the event and not spending any resources at all. So in a way, I think what they've done is probably a lot more thought out than people are thinking. It's a shame that they nerfed Orin or whatever his name is. That being said, he was ridiculously strong. And it's, yes, he's been nerfed, but
it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It sounds a lot worse on paper. I know there's a couple of play tests that are out there already from the test server, and he is still more than capable of farming Dragon 25 in solo with food, which, at the end of the day, if you're a new account and you're trying to progress, where should you be? You should be in Dragon. You should be getting your speed gear, your lifesteal gear and stuff like that, so that you can progress in other parts of the game. If you can pick up one epic, put some regen gear on him and have that on farm, you can farm your food up while you're getting your gear, and your account is literally, leagues ahead of where accounts would have been if you started, 2 to 3 years ago.
What would you guys do? I think the difficult decision for a person in this, it's like you've got the late game people, they're like, well, I don't really need either one. It's cool. You got the really early game person that's like, I can't get the legendary, but I can get the epic. That's fantastic. What would you do if you were like in that middle ground where it's like, I can get the legendary and she would be good for me, but then again, that epic, maybe I'm only on stage 20 of Dragon. Like, this opens up stage 25 and I can solo it with food. Like, what one would you go for? I think it's such a difficult decision.
I would go for get the legendary.
Yeah.
Because
epics are a lot easier to acquire. Especially if you've got Ultra Nightmare on farm, you're getting a load of shards every week anyway. I know some people claim that even if they're farming Ultra Nightmare every day, they get no shards. Let's face it, guys. You can't be doing it right. You have to be doing something wrong, because you get a lot of shards. And actually, for me personally, having some epics in the pool, which I still want, actually helps me when I go and do, sacred shard pools, and I don't necessarily get the legendary or anything like that. Pull 10 sacreds in a row and not get a legendary. But if I happen to stumble across that epic that actually I do want, which is rare because I think I've probably got every epic in the game at this point, but to have an epic pop out where it's like, yeah, actually, I really wanted this champion, I think that would be a bonus for me. Whereas the chances of you getting this legendary again is so small. I think if you have the resources, as with any fusion, you don't know what's going to happen down the line. You don't know what boss is going to come out and things like that. I think if you have the resources and you don't mind putting in the time, get the legendary. If you don't, then at least get the epic, because
the other consideration I would have is, if going for the fusion is going to delay things like I could get to Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, and I'm not doing that at the moment. Then I wouldn't be sacrificing the progression towards Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, because that's going to give me the resources that might make me get the next fusion, which could be 10 times stronger. And I think there's so many ways that the player have developed the game now to stop you from doing basic things like Minotaur farming. Basic things like, I need to climb past this boss, but I need to build this champion, or climbing into a certain tier of gold versus 3v3. I've got about 20 champions on my backlog that I need to build. This weekend, this clan versus clan, I had like 8 champions. I was like, I need to book all of these.
I mean, you've been on my account recently, Paul. I think I've got about 20 champions built, and that's it.
Yeah, I know, less than that. But it's like, I think a lot of players will appreciate mediocre fusions because they know they're not losing necessarily too bad if they don't do the fusion. Whereas if they get like a Brogni every month, it makes it a lot harder. So I think it's optional. I would also say the rare is not terrible. The rare is actually quite good for a lot of secret rooms, I think. You get rare only secret rooms. The A2 puts things on cooldown, and she veils herself. Well, that's damage reduction. The biggest problem with those rooms is the rares tend to die really quickly. So most people are running like 5 times soul bonds, or like multiple Kales and judges. I think she could potentially help out in that kind of fashion, because she has kind of got that like AoE Alika Basha style ability. So even if you're not going for legendary, picking up a rare and an epic, or a couple of the rares for your secret room progression in Doom Tower, you know, we don't know what's going to happen when they finish the current champion chain, and we're coming up to the end of the 9th champion in the next couple of months. It could be that Secret Rooms actually start giving you lots of good rewards.
Yep.
I mean, I think there'll be an uproar if they start pumping out like soul stones or something, and I'm still trying to get my Vassal of the Seal fragments, because I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm on him as well.
Like some of these legendary champions, I'm just like I have no idea what I would do with Vassal of the Seal. I actually saw one team suggestion with Vassal of the Seal, and I'm sitting there thinking, why have they used this champion? It does nothing. It's like it's got a passive that makes things hit harder.
Because they wanted to get it into the optimizer.
Well, I don't really know. So whether or not they add the rewards alongside existing fragments so that players that are still progressing get the champion and the rewards, and then players who haven't get the rewards. I know they've pretty much said they're not doing champions without saying it, because
they were hinting that. Yeah,
it's like 25 months right now if you start the game to get Jinra the Stork.
Mm-hmm.
It's already too long.
What month is it that comes to an end? Like that the first person will have collected everything?
I think it's towards the end of rotation 3. We've just finished rotation 1. I think
end of December.
Yeah, because I'm getting Krakoth fragments now, which is the last epic, and I was a few rooms behind when they first brought out Doom Tower because of the Dwarven room. So I'm like 10 fragments behind or something. I'm like just a rotation, and I'm collecting Krakoth fragments, and it's around 3 rotations per champion. So I think it'll be towards the middle of or the end of rotation 3, in which people will have Jinra the Stork. So they are on a bit of a within the next 2 patches, we need a solution for what's next, because the problem with Secret Rooms, it is literally nothing. Like you get a silver key. I'm not doing a secret room for a silver key. Like it's just not worth my time. So they're going to have to put something out there to solve that problem within the next 1 to 2 months. And I think, to be honest, the Great Hall is getting pressing now as well. Yeah, like I don't know about you, Nub. I finished my Great Hall like 4 months ago.
I'm getting close, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I haven't either. Don't worry.
In my head, I'm thinking I started playing this game 2 years ago. So if I'm at max, then there's a big chunk of the player base that during COVID that started playing the game that are now getting to max. It's almost like a rolling snowball, right? That snowball is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it started with, there's not enough players. And the last update we heard was, yeah, we kind of need to do a solution. And now I feel like it's, what do I do with my 15,000 gold coins? Like, I don't even bother with Classic. That's what I'm saying. Like, there is 0.
Make them tradable. It's fine.
The problem they've created by adding empowerment and by adding blessings is, unless you've got a +4 empowered team, then Classic Arena, if you finish your Great Hall, is virtually 0 attention, because it's so easy to stay in goal 5 because nobody attacks you because of the one-man defenses.
Yeah,
you don't bother about climbing because there's no benefit unless you're going to compete in plat, and competing in plat requires a lot of resources. Like if you haven't got Necret the Great, I personally think you can't compete in plat. You may be able to get like bottom end plat, but if you want to like have fun and seriously compete in plat and you don't have Necret the Great, just don't bother. It's just so hard because he's so dominant at the moment. And, you know, Ailil is not the champion that solves all the problems. So I think people will just stop playing Classic Arena. Like an entire game mode that's useless, because why would I go in there other than my 5 a day? Because I can't do anything with the gold medals. Magisteel, I'm going to get from Forge Pass now. That problem solved.
Well, I think a lot of this is going to transpire within the massive PvP updates, which we've heard a lot of hints about.
Yeah.
And you know, there's no point in us complaining about the fact that we haven't had that, because we know why we haven't had that.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't their fault that a war broke out. So it's completely understandable that was pushed back until 2023. However, let's bear in mind we've got a couple of days left of October. We're nearly in November. I have no idea where this year has gone.
I know, right?
But we're like, you know, a month and like 2 months away from 2023 now. Which is when they said that we're going to be getting these massive changes into PvP and things like that. So I think there's a lot to look forward to into the start of next year. And, you know, 6 months ago when we were saying that, it sounded like a hell of a long time away. But actually, we're probably...
It doesn't take long.
We've probably got 2 fusions between now and the end of the year.
Yeah.
So if you think of 2 fusion cycles and then we're into the year of PvP.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think is going to be huge for the game. I think, you know, a lot of people are skeptical about it. But I honestly think that if they can overhaul the competitive side of PvP, not just make it a whale war, then it could literally transform the game, because you've got competitive PvP mobile games. Now, obviously, they're in completely different genres, but things like Mobile Legends, you've got League of Legends, one, I can't remember what it's called. Wild Rift. But these have got huge competitive player bases of people who pick up the game, they go in and they do some PvP and things like that. They don't want to spend hours upon hours playing the game, but if they could tap into even a slight part of that competitive market, I think the game could explode even more than it is now, and the player base will just grow.
Yeah, I think when they released Awakenings and Blessings, the context was this is part of the preparation for the year of PvP.
Yeah.
But I also think they've introduced a lot of problems they have to fix from the empowerment and the blessing systems in order to make that a reality. So you're almost like, oh, well, we had a war, we couldn't do a year of PvP, so let's introduce lots of systems, but now we've actually made that hurdle even higher.
But maybe the systems won't make sense until next year. It's like, oh, we can roll these out, boys, but, you know, we'll see what it is.
I mean, whatever they do, if they can just please do protected debuffs. If the Fusion has told us anything, it means that they can support debuffs in a protected state.
Yeah.
That's all we need more than anything else, is if I place a debuff, please, for the love of God, let me place it protected. Because there's nothing worse than you go, yes, Seris has cleansed everything. She's put the debuffs out there, and it's like, boom. Yay. Or you get sheeped.
But the sheep's fun, come on. It's so worth it. It is worth it just to see a sheep. It's fine.
Just wait until everyone is walking around with 6-star sheep blessings.
I know, right? People are already saying it's horrible now, and you look at the arena top things like 1-star like sheep. I mean, that's 5%. When it's at 20%,
oh, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
You know, and it's like 2-star lightning cage. It's only 50%. When it gets to like 5-star, it's 75% chance that you don't get any buffs removed.
I just want to see a collection of YouTube clips where somebody's gone through arena and just highlighted all the sheep. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's like Shaun the Sheep, the movie all over.
Here's an idea. Why don't we take that wonderful Incinerate blessing that does absolutely nothing and make it a protected debuff blessing? Like that protection so set. Good. Yeah. Like 30% chance at fully awakened to place a debuff and make it protected. That's not imbalanced. That's fine. Like, you've got a protection set that does it. Why can I have a blessing? That means at least there's a debuffing blessing. I don't have to pick Chainbreaker because it's got accuracy on it. Like, that has a 25% chance to not put the debuff, and then a 15% chance to get a 10% turn meter, which is like a 0.00001% chance of reality.
On that note, I think we'll wrap up the podcast for today, guys. Nub, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, if you're watching and you aren't already subscribed to Nub, you should be. So head on over to his channel. Links will be in the description and all that good stuff. And we will see you in another video very, very soon.